Captain Kim Woo felt his hands shake as he stared at the screen on the bridge of the UES Harmony. For 3 straight days, a strange signal had been coming from the very edge of their solar system. Nobody on Earth had ever heard anything like it before. The bridge was dead quiet. Every crew member knew they might be looking at humanity's first real contact with aliens. The weight of that moment pressed down on everyone's shoulders. "Sir, I've run the analysis 12 times, Lieutenant Parkman said, his voice barely above a whisper. "The signal patterns are completely foreign. Nothing in our databases matches it. But the mathematical sequences suggest a massive ship with critical system failures." Kim Woo walked closer to the main display. The signal looked like a heartbeat that was getting weaker. Someone out there was dying, and they were calling for help into the empty darkness of space. "Captain, this changes everything," whispered Navigation Officer Jung Bo. "First contact protocols say we should observe from a distance and report back to Earth Command immediately." But Communications Officer Lee Na was already working at her station, her fingers flying across the controls. "Sir, I'm detecting power fluctuations in their transmission. Whatever's wrong with their ship, it's getting worse fast." Kim Woo closed his eyes for a moment. He thought about his daughter back on Earth, how she always helped hurt animals she found in their garden. He thought about his grandfather's stories of rescuing sailors from sinking ships during the old wars. Some things didn't change, no matter how far from home you traveled. "Lena, can you boost our transmission power?" he asked. "Yes, sir, but Earth Command will detect any strong signal we send. They'll know we made contact without permission." The captain looked around at his crew. These weren't politicians or diplomats. They were explorers, engineers, and healers. People who had volunteered to spend years in deep space because they wanted to help push humanity forward. "Prepare a response transmission," he ordered. "Tell them we received their distress call. Tell them we're humans from the 3rd planet, and we're coming to help." Lena's eyes went wide. "Sir, we could all lose our careers for this." Kim Woo smiled for the first time in days. "Maybe, but we'll sleep better knowing we didn't let someone die while we waited for permission to do the right thing." The message went out into space, carrying humanity's first words to another species. Not a demand or a threat, but a simple promise of help. When the human ships finally reached the alien vessel, Captain Kim Woo felt his breath catch in his throat. The massive ship stretched out before them like a floating city, easily 10 times larger than their biggest Earth vessels. But it was dying. Huge cracks ran along its metallic hull like lightning bolts frozen in time. Precious atmosphere was leaking out in ghostly streams that sparkled in the starlight before disappearing into the void. Emergency lights flickered weakly through countless windows, creating a haunting pattern of hope and despair. "My God," whispered Engineer Yang Ho as they docked. "How long have they been out here?" Dr. Cho Min was hunched over her translation computer, working frantically to decode their language. Sweat beaded on her forehead as alien symbols flashed across her screen. "I'm getting fragments," she said. "Something about their son dying. They call themselves ... Kaleri. This ship has been their home for over 200 years." The moment the airlocks opened, the human crew got their first look at the aliens. The Kaleri were tall and graceful, with pale blue skin that seemed to glow softly in the dim light. Their large, dark eyes reflected a deep sadness that spoke of generations of loss and wandering. But what shocked the humans most was the fear. These beings, who had survived the death of their entire world, were terrified of the newcomers. Children hid behind their parents, while adults backed away from the docking bay. Medic Hansol was the first to step forward. She slowly removed her helmet and smiled, showing empty hands. "It's okay," she said gently, even though they couldn't understand her words yet. "We're here to help." An injured Kaleri lay near the entrance, his breathing shallow and labored. Without hesitation, Hansol knelt beside him and began treating his wounds with her medical kit. The other Kaleri watched in amazement as this strange creature from another world worked to save one of their own. Meanwhile, Yang Ho was deep inside the ship with a team of engineers, trying to understand the alien technology. The life support systems were failing badly, and strange alien components sparked and smoked around them. But piece by piece, they began to make repairs. What happened next surprised even Captain Kim Woo. Without any orders, his crew began doing small things that went far beyond their mission. Cook Nam-soo started sharing human food with hungry Kaleri families, using hand gestures and smiles to show it was safe to eat. Communications Officer Lee Na was showing pictures of Earth to Kaleri children, who pointed excitedly at images of blue oceans and green forests. The most touching moment came when Security Officer Yoon Ji taught a group of young Kaleri how to play a simple human clapping game. Soon, the sound of laughter echoed through the damaged corridors for the first time in years. 3 months had passed since the rescue, and the Luna settlement had transformed into something nobody could have imagined. What started as a temporary refugee camp had become a thriving community where 2 completely different species lived side by side, like old neighbors. Ambassador Choi Da pressed her face against the observation deck window, watching the daily miracle unfold below. Her 8-year-old daughter Min was teaching a young Kaleri boy how to kick a soccer ball in the low gravity. Every time the ball floated higher than expected, both children dissolved into fits of laughter that echoed through the habitat domes. The Kaleri child's laugh was unlike anything humans had ever heard before. It sounded like wind chimes mixed with crystal bells, creating a musical note that somehow made everyone nearby feel happier. When it mixed with Min's innocent giggles, the sound was pure magic. "Look at that," Choi Da whispered to herself, pointing at a nearby garden area where elderly Korean grandmother Kim Soon was teaching a group of Kaleri adults how to grow earth vegetables. The aliens were fascinated by dirt, having lived in sterile spaceship environments for generations. They touched the soil with wonder, like children discovering snow for the first time. In another section, mechanical engineer Park Dong was working alongside Kaleri technicians to repair their damaged equipment. What amazed him most wasn't their advanced technology, but how eager they were to learn human repair techniques. They had spent so long maintaining the same failing systems that fresh perspectives were like gifts from heaven. The medical bay had become a center of scientific breakthrough. Dr. Lehigh was comparing Kaleri and human biology, discovering that, despite their different origins, both species shared remarkably similar emotional responses. Kaleri children got scared during thunderstorms just like human kids. Kaleri parents worried about their children's futures exactly the same way Earth parents did. But perhaps the most surprising development was in the school areas. Human teacher Seo Young had started combined classes where human and Kaleri children learned together. The Kaleri kids were teaching humans about star navigation and advanced mathematics, while human children shared Earth history and art. The language barrier seemed to disappear when kids played together. Ambassador, her aide Lim Jun, said quietly, approaching with a tablet full of reports. The Galactic Council observers arrive in 12 hours. Their preliminary reports are ... interesting. Choi Da took the tablet and read the alien text translations. The Council had classified humans as a Category 5 Deathworld species apparently, the most dangerous classification possible. According to their files, creatures from Deathworlds were supposed to be violent, territorial, and completely focused on survival at any cost. They're expecting to find warriors keeping prisoners, Lim Jun explained. Instead, they're going to see families sharing meals and children playing games together. Choi Da smiled as she watched her daughter help the Kaleri boy stand up after falling. Good. Maybe it's time the galaxy learned that surviving on a dangerous world doesn't make you dangerous. Sometimes it just makes you understand how precious life really is. The warning alarm started screaming at 0347 hours, jolting Admiral Kong Bo from his sleep in the Luna Command Center. He rushed to the bridge, still pulling on his uniform, knowing that nothing good ever happened when space got this loud, this early. What he saw on the main display made his blood run cold. Enormous alien warships were materializing out of hyperspace, like nightmares becoming real. Each vessel was the size of a city block, their dark hulls bristling with weapon arrays that could glass an entire planet. 12 massive dreadnoughts formed a perfect attack formation around Luna, blocking every escape route. "Sir, incoming transmission," reported Communications Officer Kim Do, her voice tight with barely controlled fear. "They're broadcasting on all frequencies." The main screen flickered, revealing the sender. The alien commander looked like something from humanity's worst nightmares, a creature of sharp angles and cold metal, with glowing red sensors where eyes should be. When it spoke, its voice sounded like grinding machinery mixed with winter wind. "I am Fleet Commander Zekthar of the Nexel Empire," the creature announced. "You harbored stolen property. The creatures you call Kaleri belong to us. You will surrender them for proper processing within 1 standard hour, or face the consequences." Commander OG was already pulling up legal databases, her fingers flying across multiple screens. "Admiral, they're claiming ancient salvage rights. Apparently, any species that loses their homeworld becomes property of whoever finds them first." Kongbo felt sick to his stomach, processing he'd heard whispers about what the Nexel Empire did to processed species. Labor camps, medical experiments, worse things that people didn't like to talk about. The beautiful, gentle Kaleri would be turned into slaves or lab animals. Through the command center windows, he could see the settlement below. Human families were calmly but quickly helping their Kalari friends gather essential belongings and move to the deeper underground shelters. There was no screaming, no chaos, no Everallian for themselves panic. Instead, he watched human parents carrying Kaleri children, while Kaleri adults helped elderly humans navigate the emergency passages. 8-year-old Park Sun was holding the hand of her Kaleri friend Veltar, both girls walking together towards safety, while Sun's mother carried both of their stuffed animals. In the school section, teacher Lim A was making sure every single Kaleri student made it to the shelters before worrying about herself. Admiral OG said quietly, "Earth Command is sending reinforcements, but they won't arrive for 18 hours. We're completely outgunned. Those ships could destroy Luna in minutes." Kongbo watched a human grandfather teaching his Kaleri neighbor's son how to stay calm during emergencies, showing the young alien the breathing exercises that human soldiers used before battle. 3 months ago, these species had never met. Now, they were family. "Open a channel to the Nexel fleet," he ordered, his voice steady despite the impossible odds. Sir OG looked confused. "Tell Commander Zekthar that the Kaleri refugees are under human protection. If he wants them, he'll have to go through us first." The words hung in the air like a declaration of war against an empire that could crush Earth like an insect. The Nexel fleet commanders had studied human military tactics for weeks before the attack. According to their intelligence, death species fought like wild animals, brutal, chaotic, and completely focused on killing as many enemies as possible. They expected screaming charges, suicidal attacks, and the kind of savage warfare that had made their empire fear creatures from dangerous planets. What they got instead completely shattered their understanding of combat. Captain UC's fighter squadron moved through space like a deadly dance, their small ships weaving between the massive Nexel dreadnoughts with impossible precision. But instead of targeting the bridge sections or crew quarters where they could cause maximum casualties, the human pilots focused on something the Nexel had never seen before. "Red Squadron, target their weapon arrays only," UC commanded over the comm system. "Blue Squadron, disable their engines. Remember, those ships have non-combatants aboard. We're not here to massacre families." The Nexel watched in confusion as human torpedoes surgically removed their weapons. while leaving life support systems completely untouched. When their engines were disabled, the humans could have easily destroyed the helpless ships. Instead, they backed off and waited. "This makes no tactical sense," growled Nexel Subcommander Krelvac as his flagship drifted powerless. "They had us defenseless. Why didn't they finish us?" His question was answered when human boarding pods attached to their hull. The next warriors prepared for brutal hand-to-hand combat. But the humans who entered were carrying medical supplies alongside their weapons. Lieutenant Park Jun led the boarding team into the Nexel ship's main corridor. Several alien warriors lay wounded from the precise attacks, expecting to be executed. Instead, they watched in amazement as human medics immediately knelt beside them and began treating their injuries. "Stand down your weapons, and we'll provide medical assistance," Park Jun announced through a translation device. "We're not here to harm civilians or wounded soldiers." One young Nexel officer, badly injured from a console explosion, stared up at Medic Biksu as she carefully bandaged his burns. His species had metal gray skin and glowing red eyes, making him look terrifying to human standards. But Biksu treated him with the same gentle care she would show any patient. "I don't understand," the alien officer whispered. "Your kind are supposed to be monsters. Savage killers from a death planet. Why are you helping me?" Biksu looked up from her work, her eyes filled with genuine compassion. "Because you're hurt," she said simply. "Where I come from, that's all that matters." The Nexel officer had spent his entire life believing that strength meant crushing those weaker than yourself. His empire had conquered dozens of worlds by showing no mercy to anyone. But here was a human, a creature from one of the most dangerous planets in the galaxy, risking her own safety to heal an enemy who had come to enslave her friends. Throughout the Nexel fleet, similar scenes played out. Human boarding parties secured ship after ship, but instead of executing prisoners or destroying captured vessels, they set up medical stations and began treating wounded aliens with the same care they would show their own people. Nexel Commander Vexel woke up, expecting to find himself in a torture chamber or execution cell. Instead, he was lying on a soft bed in a room with actual windows showing the stars outside. There was a small table with books, a device that played soothing music, and even what appeared to be games for entertainment. For 3 days, he had waited for the pain to begin. In the Nexel Empire, captured enemies faced interrogation techniques that would break the strongest minds. But the humans seemed content to let him rest and recover from his injuries. When the door finally opened, he expected to see a brutal interrogator, accompanied by torture devices. Instead, Colonel Zhang Mi entered, carrying a tea service and some kind of sweet-smelling pastries. She was a small woman who looked like she could be someone's grandmother, not a military officer from a death world. "Good morning, Commander," she said politely, setting up the tea service on the small table. "I hope you slept well. Our medical staff says your injuries are healing nicely." Vexal stared at her in complete confusion. "You're going to torture me for information, aren't you?" Zhang Mi looked genuinely surprised. "Torture? Commander, we're civilized people. We follow something called the Geneva Convention, laws that govern how prisoners of war should be treated. Would you like some tea? It's a blend from Earth that helps with stress." The alien commander's mind struggled to process this information. His species had conquered 47 worlds through fear and brutality. Prisoners were resources to be used up and discarded. The concept of treating enemies with dignity was completely foreign to him. "I've studied your military records, Zhang," Mi continued, pouring tea for both of them. "Your people call us monsters from a savage death world, yet here we are, having a civilized conversation while following laws that protect even our enemies. Don't you find that interesting?" "Deathworlders should be savage killers," Vexal muttered, accepting the cup of tea, despite his confusion. "Your planet tried to kill you every single day. How did you not become monsters?" Jiang Mi smiled sadly and sipped her tea. Oh, we tried that path for a long time. Thousands of years, actually. We had wars that killed millions of people. We did terrible things to each other out of fear and hatred. But eventually, we learned something important. She stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the stars, where both human and Nexel ships now floated peacefully side by side. We discovered that true strength doesn't come from being the most brutal or the most feared. Real strength comes from choosing compassion, even when you have the power to choose cruelty. It comes from protecting the weak instead of crushing them. Dex set down his teacup, his hands shaking slightly. But your world was dangerous. How did you survive without becoming predators? We became guardians instead, Jiang Mi replied simply. We learned that the best way to survive on a dangerous world isn't to become more dangerous yourself. It's to build something worth protecting and find others willing to help you protect it. The video files started appearing on galactic networks within hours of the conflict's end. Someone had been recording everything: the rescue, the settlement, life, and most shocking of all, the aftermath of the battle. The footage spread from system to system faster than anyone could control it. On the trade station Epsilon, Captain Moonho sat in the cantina nursing his drink, while dozens of alien species crowded around holographic displays, watching the impossible scenes play out before their eyes. The place buzzed with conversations in 100 different languages, but everyone was talking about the same thing. The first video showed human families calmly evacuating their Kaleri friends during the attack. No panic, no abandonment of the aliens when danger arrived. Instead, human parents carried Kaleri children to safety, while Kaleri adults helped elderly humans navigate emergency passages. But it was the battle footage that really shook the galaxy. Species after species watched human fighters disable Nexel warships with surgical precision, never once targeting crew quarters or life support systems. When they could have easily destroyed helpless enemies, the humans chose mercy instead. This cannot be real, muttered a Vorthok delegate, his 4 eyes fixed on the screen. Deathworld species are savage. They kill everything that threatens them. The most disturbing footage from any aliens came from inside the captured Nexel ships. Human medics were treating wounded enemies with the same care they would show their own people. Nexel warriors, who had come to enslave the Kaleri, were receiving medical attention, comfortable quarters, and respectful treatment from their captors. An elderly Zelani merchant shook her head in disbelief. In 500 years of galactic civilization, we have never seen anything like this. When my people capture enemies, we execute them or sell them as slaves. These humans are healing them. The conversation grew heated as more species joined, and a reptilian Korth warrior slammed his fist on the table. This makes them weak. Showing mercy to enemies only encourages more attacks. But a soft voice from the corner made everyone turn. A young Talari scientist, barely old enough to leave her homeworld, was staring at footage of human children teaching Kaleri kids Earth games. Maybe we've been wrong about everything, she whispered. Look at them, they're not weak. They defeated the Nexel Empire's best fleet without breaking a sweat. They're not savage either. They could have slaughtered everyone, but chose not to. What if surviving on a death world doesn't make you a monster? Moonho watched the room fall silent as aliens who had spent lifetimes believing in the power of fear and brutality suddenly questioned everything they thought they knew. A Nexel prisoner appeared on screen, speaking to his human interrogator. Your planet should have made you killers, he said. How did you become healers instead? The human woman's answer echoed through the cantina. Because we learned that true strength isn't about how much damage you can do. It's about how much you're willing to sacrifice to protect others. The galaxy would never be the same. The massive galactic council chamber had never seen anything like this before. For 10,000 years, council sessions had followed predictable patterns, civilized species, discussing trade routes, territory disputes, and resource allocation. But today, The ancient hall buzzed with chaos as hundreds of delegates argued about something that challenged everything they thought they knew about the universe. Ambassador Song Ah sat perfectly still at the human delegation table, watching. Alien representatives from across the galaxy waved tentacles, claws, and various appendages in heated debate. Her translator device was working overtime, converting dozens of languages into a symphony of confusion and disbelief. "The classification system has worked for millennia," shouted the Corvin representative, his blue scales shimmering with agitation. "Deathworld species are dangerous. They evolve through violence and conquest. It's basic xenobiology." Council leader Vexahan, an ancient being whose species had founded the galactic government, raised one of his 6 arms for silence. His voice carried the weight of centuries when he spoke. "The human incident has created complications in our understanding. Our databases clearly classify Earth as a Category 5. Deathworld, one of the most dangerous planetary environments known to exist." Song Ah finally stood, her simple Earth clothes looking plain among the elaborate robes and biomechanical suits of the other delegates. But when she spoke, her voice carried a quiet confidence that made the entire chamber fall silent. "Honored Council Leader, your classification systems assume that struggle automatically creates cruelty. But you've missed something important. Yes, Earth tried to kill us every single day. We faced ice ages, volcanic eruptions, deadly predators, plagues, and natural disasters that would wipe out most species." She gestured to a holographic display showing Earth's violent history. "But here's what you didn't account for. We survived not by becoming the most dangerous predators, but by learning to work together. Every catastrophe that should have destroyed us instead taught us that our strength comes from protecting each other." An exiled delegate recently released from human custody stood up unexpectedly. "I came to Earth expecting to face savage monsters. Instead, I found healers who treated my wounds and teachers who showed me a better way to live. How does your classification system explain that?" The chamber erupted in whispers and heated discussions. Species that had built their civilizations on conquest and dominance were struggling to understand how a death world could produce guardians instead of predators. "You're asking us to rewrite 10,000 years of scientific doctrine," Vex said slowly, his ancient eyes studying Song Ah with newfound respect. "Based on the actions of one species from one death world." Song Ah smiled gently. "I'm not asking you to rewrite anything. I'm simply suggesting that evolution might have more paths than you imagined. Maybe surviving terrible conditions doesn't just create killers. Maybe sometimes it creates species who understand exactly how precious and fragile life really is." She paused, letting her words sink in. "And maybe those are the species you want as neighbors." The silence that followed would mark the beginning of a new age in galactic civilization. 6 months had passed since the Galactic Council session that changed everything. And Captain Shin, you still couldn't believe what he was seeing. The massive colony ship New Harmony stretched out before him like a floating city. But this wasn't just another human vessel heading to distant stars. This was something the galaxy had never attempted before. Through the observation deck windows, he watched families from 20 different species moving into their new homes, side by side. Human children were helping Kalari families carry their belongings, while elderly Corvin merchants shared stories with Earth's grandmothers in the common areas. The ship's corridors echoed with a dozen different languages, but somehow, everyone seemed to understand each other perfectly. "Captain, the final loading reports are coming in," announced his first officer, Park Ra, trying to hide her amazement as she watched a group of former Nexo warriors teaching human teenagers advanced mathematics. "We're carrying 50,000 beings from 47 different worlds. 6 months ago, half of these species had never even seen each other." Shinyu nodded, remembering the chaos that had followed humanity's first contact. The galaxy had spent months arguing about what to do with these strange Deathworlders who treated enemies like family, and fought wars while following ethical guidelines. Many species had demanded humans be quarantined as too dangerous to interact with. Others had insisted they were too soft to survive in the harsh reality of galactic politics. But then something unexpected happened. Species after species began quietly requesting human advisors for their own conflicts. The Zilani called for human mediators when their ancient war with the Hektari reached a stalemate. The Vorthok Empire asked for human teachers when they decided to reform their prison systems. Even the proud Corvan military wanted to learn how humans maintained discipline without brutality. "Sir, look at this," Parkra said, pointing to her tableau. "They're officially calling it the human doctrine in the galactic databases now. Strength through compassion, survival through cooperation. Military academies across 50 systems are teaching our conflict resolution methods alongside traditional warfare." A burst of laughter drew their attention to the main corridor below. A young Kaleri girl was chasing her human best friend through the halls, both of them giggling as they played some complicated game that seemed to involve floating toys in the low gravity. Their parents, one human couple and one Kaleri pair, stood together watching their children with identical expressions of joy and wonder. What struck Shin Yu most was how natural it all looked. The fears that had dominated galactic civilization for millennia. The assumption that different species couldn't truly coexist, that cooperation was just a temporary pause between conflicts, were melting away. Like ice in spring, an announcement echoed through the ship's communication system. "All families, prepare for final departure. Next stop, the Andromeda Galaxy, where we'll build humanity's first joint colony with our galactic neighbors." Shinyu smiled as he watched more colony ships in the distance, each one carrying similar, mixed populations toward new worlds. The galaxy had finally learned that the most dangerous thing about humans wasn't their ability to wage war. It was their terrifying capacity to make everyone around them want to become better than they were. The age of true galactic civilization had begun.